Hey everyone, in this video we will dive into the basics of Next.js by building a super simple app, a random number generator. This app is good for getting your hands on with Next.js without any complex setup. We will go over setting up the project, creating a basic page, and adding a random number that changes every time you click on a button or refresh the page. Let's get started. First, let's create a new Next.js project. Open up the terminal in the location where you want to create your project and type the command npx create next app but latest random number. This random number is the name of your project. You can have any name you want here. Once we click enter, Nextjs will then ask us for a few setup questions. We can start by choosing whether to use TypeScript. TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript that adds optional types which help catch errors early and make the code more maintainable. For this app, I will select yes for TypeScript. Next up is ESLint. ESLint is a tool that helps keep our code clean and consistent by flagging common coding issues, which reduces the chances of bug. I would recommend selecting yes for ESLint to help maintain high quality code. Then we have the option for Tailwind CSS. Tailwind CSS is a popular utility first CSS framework that allows for rapid styling directly in your component. By choosing yes, we can quickly add style to our app without writing a lot of custom CSS. I'm gonna choose yes. Next up is source directory options. If you choose yes here, your application files will be organized inside a source folder, which can help with maintaining clean structure, especially in larger projects. However, it's completely optional and won't affect your app's performance. Here I'm going to choose no. Now let's move on to the app router. I personally recommend selecting yes here, as this feature offers greater flexibility for building complex applications, support nested layouts natively, and lets us take the advantage of both server and client components. With all these benefits, it is a great choice for our project. And finally, Turbo Pack. I suggest selecting yes for this option. TurboPack helps speed up the compilation process during development, making your workflow smoother. Enabling TurboPack is a good choice. Now, we can skip customizing the import alias. We can stick to the default settings for it. Once your app is created, let's open it in VS Code by typing code and your project's name, random number. Now we can start the development server by opening up the terminal by Ctrl J and typing npm run dev. Now when you go to localhost 3000, you can see the app here. The background may change depending on the theme you are using in your system. Let's remove all this and have like a hello world app for first. So let me just go back to VS Code and in app global.css, remove everything except the first three lines. And let me just minimize this a bit. Okay. Now in layout.tsx, we don't have to change anything here. If you want, you can change the title that appears on the top, like a random number. Right. In page.tsx, let's remove everything here and create a new div with hello world. We don't need this. Now if you go to the UI, you can see that we have a hello world. And you can see this thing in the bottom having text as static route, which is from Turbo Pack. We don't have to worry about this, it won't appear in the production. Now let's build a app. In VS Code, I'm just going to create a new variable here, const random number, equal to math.random into 100. Math.random will give a number between 0 and 1, and when we multiply it with 100 we will get a 2-digit number, and we need a whole number, right? So we need to round it off. For that we can use math.float. So now we will get a number between 0 and 100. Alright, instead of hello world, I'm going to create another div inside here with the text random number. So here I'm just going to add a class name, min height of screen, like bg gray of 200, text gray of 800, and let's make the text center. So flex, justify center, item center. I think it's enough for this. And in random number, let's have a class name, text of 9 XL, font serif, and also font semi bold. I think we're done here. Let's see it in the UI. Yeah. So we are getting 70. When I refresh, 90, 87, 18. So now we will add a button here. So when we click that, it will change the number automatically without refreshing the page. But before we go there is one issue here. If we see the code now, we are using server components, meaning that in client components, we will use something like use client at the top of the page. Since we are not using that, it is defaults to server component. And right now we are in the development server. So when we access the site, every time it will render a new page and it will give it to us. But when we use the production build, it won't work like that. It will just render it once and it will cache it and it will send it as a static files to the client, so the number won't be changing. Let's try it out by using the command npm run build. So in terminal, I'm just going to close the development server and npm run build. And we can start the command by npm start or npm run start. Alright, now if you go to localhost 3000, refresh the page, we're getting 58. But when we refresh the page again, we won't get any number here other than 58. Since it has already been built and cached inside our server, it won't change it. So we need to change this into a client component so that this part of the code where it generates the random number will be done in the client so that it will be changing every time we refresh. And also we are going to use a button for this. So buttons require user interactions which cannot be done with server components. So for our case, we actually need to move into the client component. So we can directly change this page into a client component by adding use client inside the code at the top of the page. But I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to show you how to import it from a components folder. Like we are going to create a separate client component and we will just import it here. So in the parent directory, I'm just going to create a new folder named components. There are ways to make a server component re-render in the production also by forcing it to fetch fresh data using options like revalidate or setting the cache to no store. But for cases like this where we want the number to update with every user interactions without reloading the page, a client component is better fit. So inside components folder, I'm just going to create a new file. You can have any name you want. I'm just going to add like client component. I'm just going to start with comp.tsx. Here we'll also need a function to export here. I'm just gonna copy this page and add it here. And instead of home page, let's change it as client comp. And let's add our use client here. Also, I'm going to stop this and start our development server by npm run dev. So after our random number, let's create a button which text as change number. Let's add a class name here. So margin top of 5, px of 4, py of 2. BG should be blue of 800, and while hovering let's change it to blue of 700. So we need to add a colon after hover. BG blue of 700, text should be white, and let's make it as a rounded corner, so rounded LG. Now if you go to the UI and we refresh the page, we're not seeing anything here since we haven't called this component yet. So in page.tsx, I'm just going to remove everything here. I'm just going to add an empty div, and we also don't need this random number here, and we just need to import this client component. Yeah, so make sure it is importing from components. Alright, now if we go to the UI, you can see the number 89 and change number. If I refresh, we can see it says an error which we will solve in a bit, but we are having a bit of an issue in the UI itself. We want the number in the below, right, not side by side. I think it has something to do with the flex here. So in client component, since we are using flex, it goes for as a row, like left to right. We need to change it to call, so we just need to put it as flex call, which makes to go from top to bottom. So that is done. So this button won't work anything since we haven't written our on click function. So if I refresh again, we can see there is an error. This is an iteration error, like it says when it is sent from the server it has one data, when it's sent to the client it has another data. So instead we have to do something like we have to keep it as null at start and after it is went to the client, we have to change the number. So for that, we need to do some state management. So we are going to use state for that. But before that, let me just add this match.floor inside a function, so we can just get it from a function, since we are also going to use this inside our button, right? Let me create a function, get random number, which is going to return a type of number. We're just going to return, and you can just put it there. So that is the function we are going to use to get our random number. And here we are going to use states. So use state. Make sure it is imported from React. So within bracket, we are going to define it as null. And we need to give a type for this as well, since we're using TypeScript. So it is going to be a number, or it can also be null. Alright, so since we are using a state, the naming should be like within a square bracket, and we also give another variable like set random number to change the number when we need. We have created our use state also. Yeah, so we can see there is no number now since it is set as null, right? So we are using null here instead of directly adding random number here, because if we use that, we will again get the same error. Let me just show you. So I'm just going to use this get random number instead of null here in the use state directly. And if we go to the UI now, it says a random number. When I refresh, you can see that we are getting the same error as citation error. So we need to do something to set the number only in the client, not in the server. For that, we need to keep this as null, and we have to use effect for this. I'm just going to call use effect, which is also imported from React. And inside this, we need to write an arrow function, and we can just say it as set random number, and we can call our get random number function. This will set our random function. In the last, we just need to add a square bracket to just run it once. So if we go to the UI now, we don't see an error here. So every time we refresh, it changes the number. We need an on-click function here as well. So in our button, I'm just going to put it down here and write an on-click function here. So instead on click, let's create an arrow function, and here we will just set the random number and get a new random number. So this will change the random number when we click the button as well. So if we go to the UI now, we can see that when I click on change number, it changes number every time. Let me just build this again with npm run build, and let's start the server with npm start. And now if we go to localhost 3000, if I refresh the page, we can see 81. If I refresh it again, it says 13, and when I click the button, it also changes the number. Alright, I think I have covered most of the basics in Nextjs now. Hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload, and I will see you there.